Hey everybody, I'm Matt Valley. Welcome to episode number 140 of the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories and side gigs of the research and insights pros that you trust. Very excited about today's guest. Guest is Rachael Dimit, and she is an expert when it comes to all things youth culture and trend forecasting. And it makes sense that she is client-side researcher, a senior manager of global insights, I believe, at Foot Locker Inc., where I've been getting my shoes for my whole life. I just did get a new pair of kicks a couple weeks ago. So, of course, I went to Foot Locker as I always do. It's like clockwork. Great brand, great retailer, doing lots of cool things. So that's all very exciting, right? But Rachael is also an expert when it comes to the fine art of making and slinging pizzas. Now, this is actually really cool. We haven't had this kind of side gig on our podcast before, but it is an honest to goodness side gig for her. She has a very loyal, rabid following in Chicago for her pizzas. And I'm so excited to get into all of this. So, welcome to the show, Rachael.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Very excited to have you. Very excited to explore a brand new topic, brand new side gig on the podcast today. Before we get started, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank Brian Swick, who was my guest for episode number 133. He works for a great company called Orchard Insights. He introduced me to Rachael. So thank you for that, Brian. Appreciate that. He still owes me a tattoo. Got to get that done at some point. Yes. So the other thing I want to say is I did start my morning this morning with this great mental enhancement shot, mental performance shot called Magic Mind, as I do every morning. It gives me a sharp mind, low stress, calm energy, sets me up for success for the day. Lots of great ingredients like ashwagandha, lion's mane. All these things have come to rely upon on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't taste too bad either. My son Nelson takes it as well. It works very well for us, and it could work well for you. So if you want to give it a shot, get a good deal on it, you can go to magicmind.com/RNRLT. Get yourself a nice discount on a one-time use or an even better discount on a subscription if you're ready to jump in with both feet. But check it out. www.magicmind.com/RNRLT. All right, Rachael. So I always like to start by talking insights. Leave the best stuff for next. But hey, this is about research, right? So tell us about how you first got into this insight space and take us up to present day.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually studied economics and international studies. So I thought that I was going to go into the very unglamorous world of foreign policy. So my first internship was actually in foreign policy research at the Asia Society in New York City. And while it was very interesting work, it's pretty structured, it's pretty dry. There's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of rules related. And frankly, at the end of the day, I said, I think I'm just a little bit too cool for this. And ultimately, I sought out more private sector related research, and I ended up at Fung Global Retail and Technology, which now is known as Coresight Research, and they do retail specific research. So that's where I ended up, and then that led me swiftly into the world of trend forecasting, where I worked for WGSN, the leading trend forecasting agency.
Yeah,
that was work where I felt right at home. I was doing more kind of product related stuff, youth culture stuff, really trying to understand like why people buy the products that they do, what makes people gravitate towards certain trends versus others, learning all about consumer segmentation and the different types of, demographics and psychographics that gravitate towards certain products. And I was actually working with clients like Adidas and Puma and Reebok at the time. And so as you can see, that led pretty swiftly and easily into my role as the senior manager at Foot Locker, where now
Yeah.
I really hone in on youth culture research as it relates to footwear and apparel, trying to understand, all the different types of folks that shop at Foot Locker. Obviously, we're a huge retailer. We serve a lot of different types of consumers, from
Sure.
kids all the way through to adults. And so, yeah, it's just been a pretty seamless journey. I obviously didn't have it planned out this way, but I really love what I do.
Yeah, yeah, I can identify with a lot of that. I did a master's degree in foreign policy myself,
Okay.
so I totally understand it, but I also understand how transferable the analytical skills are. So it makes a lot of sense. And some of my every so often I'll get a call from my graduate school alma mater with somebody who went into foreign policy but is interested in insights,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah.
and sees my background and wants to chat about it. So, okay.
Yeah. No shade to the foreign policy folks. They have their work cut out for them. But yeah, it was just a little dry for my liking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can totally understand. I can totally understand. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your shift so you went from WGSN, you're working specifically with trends across lots of different clients. You're working on the agency
Yeah.
side, then you move to the client side. What's your feeling about that?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, client side is cushy. It's cushy work, but
Yeah.
uh, at the same time, it was super fun to be at WGSN working with a multitude of clients. I was working with folks from 3M, like like post-it notes, all the way over to people like Facebook and yeah, like I mentioned, some of the footwear brands and fashion brands. So that work was just every day was different, and that can be a lot of fun in itself too. So
Yeah, yeah, cool. All right. So I know that you sling pizzas, and I know you just have a passion for the culinary arts.
yes,
So give us a flavor about how all this has come about.
yeah. I mean,
No
I've
pun
always
intended, by the way.
yeah, I've always loved cooking, and ultimately, a couple years ago, I decided I wanted to take it a little bit more seriously. So I did go to culinary school for a little while here in Chicago. I went in a night program, so I was, in school 4 days a week while I was also working full time, and that was
Wow.
super interesting, and I really loved it. Ultimately, I kind of say I'm a culinary school dropout. I did drop out of culinary school, so you may not trust me fully, but I got started at least. But ultimately, I was like, I want to do something on the side that takes my love of cooking to the next level, and so that's when I had seen during the pandemic a lot of these kind of what they call DM dining ventures pop up, and essentially what that means is that the vast majority of the kind of like ordering and liaising with folks is all done via Instagram, and so the ordering and the kind of that
Right.
thing happens via the DM idea. So that's where the DM dining was born. So yeah, I had seen a lot of those examples pop up during the pandemic, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to just give this a shot myself, and that's where Pomodora, which is the name of my brand, was born, and I've been selling pizzas now for about a year and a half.
Yeah, cool. That's so cool. And I think when we talked before, you mentioned that you primarily focus on Detroit style, and you're living in Chicago. So tell me a little about that.
Well, I know. The famous Chicago war of, is it deep dish or is it tavern style? Frankly, there's room for both. I don't see why there's a war here of which one is better, because to me, they're both amazing. But ultimately, yeah, I focus on Detroit style, which is obviously not the classic Chicago fanfare, but uh, Detroit style is special because it can be made pretty easily in a home oven.
Right.
Neapolitan style pizza really requires that like 900 to 1,000 degree oven to get its kind of like classic chewy texture, whereas Detroit style only requires between 450 and 500 degrees. So that's your
Ah,
standard home oven.
okay.
So yeah, that's how it came about.
Okay, cool. Now, I do have to ask because you are living in Chicago, right? So, and you mentioned the Great Debate. deep dish versus the tavern style, which
Yes.
I might classify. Now, I'm from St. Paul, so I might classify as that as Minnesota style. I don't care what anyone says. So where do you stand on that debate?
Oh, I mean, yeah, like I said, I think there's room for both. I love them both. I love uh, Nick and Vito's on the South Side Tavern style, but I also love Lou Malnati's. It just really depends what you're in the mood for, you know? So to me, there's room for both. Which one is true Chicago style? I agree that I've seen tavern style kind of all over the place across the country, and lots of people lay claim to that kind of pizza. So is it truly Chicago style? I'm not sure, but ultimately, Chicago's got a lot to pick from, and we're pretty lucky here in terms of pizza.
Well, I'll tell you, you are lucky because I've been in Dallas now for 8 years. It is almost impossible to find pizza cut into squares, especially with the toppings underneath the cheese. If anyone's listening and knows a place in Dallas, let me know. I would be grateful.
Well,
Um,
maybe I have to move down there and start the tavern style movement.
Huge opportunity.
Yeah. This is the white space, the market opening that we're looking
There you go.
for.
Oh, cool. So how much does so tell me about this. I know you've got some regular customers. How does
Yeah.
that all work? So how often do you post that you're making pizzas and what's the whole mechanism?
Yeah, so to be totally honest, there's not like a real cadence to it. It's kind of as I please, which is nice.
Yeah.
So I haven't developed too much of a set schedule so that I can do this kind of when my the rest of my life allows.
Yeah.
I started out in Beverly, which is a neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, and a really amazing neighborhood. There's a lot of people really love to support community there, and so my first pizza drop, which is kind of how I do it, I announced that the pizzas will be available a few days ahead of time, and then people sign up, and essentially I raffle them off.
Okay.
But Beverly was a really great place to start because my very first pizza drop, I only had 3 signups, but by the third drop, I had more than 30 because
Wow.
people were really, telling their friends, telling their family. The word got out really quick. And yeah, I blew up really quickly in that neighborhood because of the overall kind of community support that people really foster there. And so that was just, I couldn't have started this in a better place. And ultimately, quickly the word was spreading, and it was
Yeah.
hard to keep up with the demand. Yeah.
You know what? I love that model because number one, you can truly fit it in as it fits your schedule, right? So make pizzas or not,
Yep.
depending on whether you have time. But then there's something so powerful about the notion of scarcity when you
Yes.
don't know when something is coming, or it's only coming once in a while. It just makes it that much more precious when it is available. So
Exactly.
probably increasing people's chances of wanting to get their hands on the pizza. So it's cool.
Right. And where else has that model is Foot Locker with sneaker drops.
Yes,
I came up with
yes,
the idea.
I see. Okay. Wow, is that ever the perfect lead into the next question? So I think I know the answer now, right? I was going to ask you what you've learned from your professional experience that you've applied to your pizza gig, and it sounds like that's one of them.
It really is, definitely. I did sort of steal the sneaker drop model when it comes to my pizzas. But also, I mean, because of the way that I do the model of like creating the scarcity and then also asking people to kind of sign up for the raffle, I do collect essentially at the end of the day some consumer data. People share just basic information with me so that I can reach out to them and let them know that they've won. But at the end of the day, I have a full spreadsheet where I keep all the information so that I know how many times people have signed up so that I can give weight to those who haven't won in the past. So that when I enter them into the actual raffle, those who haven't won do get favor. But then
Yeah,
there's also that balance that I'm trying to strike of my loyal customers at the same time. I want to reward them. So
yeah.
there's a little bit of playing into kind of consumer loyalty at the same time. But it's a tough balance to strike when I thankfully have a lot of interest. So.
So there was lots of accusations to bring it to the NBA, right, which is definitely a sneaker league.
Yes.
So thinking about locally here, the Dallas Mavericks, they somehow won the draft lottery and got the first overall pick. People thought that there was all sorts of shenanigans going on behind the scenes. So are people trying to influence their opportunity within your lottery? And how does that work?
Absolutely. The amount of DMs I get saying, what do I need to do to put myself at the front of the line? Things like that. I'm your most loyal customer, this kind of thing. Obviously, I appreciate all of the love and support, but yes, there is a lot of trying to influence that. Of course, my friends too, they think they should be put at the top of the list, and it's like, hey, if anything, you guys are the ones that have to wait because you get access to my pizza more often than the general public.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. Well, it's so cool. It's so innovative. I mean, it's just a small business that you do on the side, but you've got all this innovation built into it that's really exciting. So
Yeah.
let me switch back to insights again for a second. The thing I love about your background is like you started out kind of early, and you've always kind of been on the forefront of culture and trends, both on your agency side and your client side. So as you're looking ahead to the future of insights, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously the trend right now is AI. It's impossible
Yeah,
to talk about insights at every conference I go to, whether it's IIEX or Shop Talk. Everything is AI, AI, AI. And of course, I do think it's important. And, we're integrating it into our research consistently at Foot Locker. But where you see the pendulum swing one way, you always see it swing back the other way. As in, when there's a trend, there's always a counter trend. And I definitely
sure.
do see the idea of, the human aspect of research becoming more and more important. The amount of pitches I get for whether it's synthetic survey takers or synthetic IDIs or synthetic chat rooms where you can go chat with AI bots. Essentially, I see that the need to actually talk face to face with people is becoming more and more important as this trend grows on that end, because ultimately we already know that sure, AI is getting better and better as it grows, but there are still biases built into AI. And
For
so
sure.
particularly as we think about our consumer at Foot Locker, who is, oftentimes a young multicultural male, the types of biases and stereotypes that are built into AI right now are probably not really going to serve Foot Locker if we're looking to, essentially break out of what we believe to already be true. And so we need to go directly to the source and ask young folks about
Right.
themselves instead of just, I always think about the Steve Buscemi meme of, hey, kids, hello, fellow kids. Like, we can't assume things about young folks anymore, because, and ultimately, I still think a lot of the synthetic operations that are out there do rely on stereotypes, and ultimately, I think we're swinging back the other direction and making sure that we're tapping right into the source, into the human aspect.
Yeah, cool. I love to hear that face-to-face market research.
Yes.
Hashtag face-to-face MRX. Good
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
I am a big believer myself. Um, so this is media, right? It's a podcast. You rely heavily on Instagram, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
We all consume media of all different types. So I'm
Yes.
interested to know with this little bit of spare time that you have, what media is winning your time for inspiration, enjoyment, or whatever?
So a few things. I am, as what the youth, Gen Z, would say, I am chronically online.
Yeah.
And ultimately, yes, I spend probably a relatively embarrassing amount of time on TikTok because I like to say that this is kind of the emotional labor I put into the job. It's a joke that basically I should be paid to sit on TikTok
Right.
because ultimately, I'm sure, as you know, it's really hard to turn that research brain off. And so even when I'm just scrolling TikTok, like in my bed at night, about to, go to bed, like I'm saving TikToks that I'm ultimately using for my insights and research later on as I'm looking at how young people are thinking, how they're behaving, what types of trends are out there. So I like to think that it's a little bit of kind of anthropological research instead of just doom scrolling.
Yeah, for sure.
And then also because I do, once I'm done click-clacking at the laptop, I spend a lot of time in the kitchen. I'm an audiobook girl. I love audiobooks. So I listen to a lot of particularly nonfiction, really trying to understand, economics, politics, things like that are shaping the way young people live today.
Yeah, sure. Awesome. Yeah, you've got everything sort of geared towards what it is you're working on. And like you said, it's hard to shut off your brain, and it's hard to draw connections to your professional life when you're trying to consume something that's just supposed to turn your mind off, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I like what I do, so it's kind of nice that my personal interests can bleed into my professional life.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right, Rachel, we've gotten this far. It's called the Rock and Roll Research Podcast. You see
Yes.
some of the posters behind me. So
Yes.
you know what's coming. I gotta know, we have not even spoke 1 second about music. So I'm fascinated to know if you are stranded on a desert island, Rachel, and you have 3 albums of your choosing to keep you company for the rest of your days. What are they?
So my first album would have to be Bon Iver's self-titled album.
Yeah,
I grew up in Eau Claire, where Bon Iver is from. He was actually a camp
Bon
counselor.
Iver's from Eau Claire, Wisconsin?
Yes,
I had no idea.
so he was a camp counselor at the summer camp I grew up going to. So he would play guitar around the fire,
What?
and we would sing camp songs. And then to see him blossom into best album of the year Grammy, or best new artist Grammy. That was pretty cool. And so that music has just always been kind of really sentimental and something that I've always grown up with, I guess.
That's amazing. What a story. I had no idea. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then completely different genre, but I am a lover of reggaeton. And so Bad Bunny's Debí Tirar Más Fotos is one of my favorite albums, although honestly picking one Bad Bunny album is pretty much impossible. But I've got 3 albums on the desert island, so I'm just going to go with the most recent one.
Okay, cool.
And then a complete other genre. I love Casey Musgrave's Golden Hour.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite albums, easy listening, oftentimes in the kitchen while I'm cooking. So that album has gotten a lot of plays from me.
I love that. That's a really nice variety for being stranded on a desert island. You're not going to get bored because
Yes,
you're switching from all these different genres. So
exactly.
so very cool stuff. Excellent. Very cool. I have to remind people, I'm going to say, if you're interested in trying this Magic Mind, I highly recommend it. Go to magicmind.com/RNRLT. Get a nice discount on a one-time use or a subscription. Check it out. Works for me. It should work for you. But Rachel, look, here's the deal. You live in Chicago. I work for Mintel, which is based in Chicago, at least in the U.S. We got to make this happen in person, and I'm going to try to time it on a week where maybe I can get into the mix for one of your pizzas. So that's my plan.
Yeah, just follow along on Instagram. The handle is Pomodora.
Pomodora.
Pomodora, and that's written twice.
Okay.
And that's I announce all the drops, so you can follow along there.
Very cool. Hopefully shipping could potentially be part of it.
We're working on it. We got a lot of R&D to do here in the kitchen.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Rachel. This has been a great chat. Look forward to chatting more in the future. In the meantime, rock and roll.